I'm going to end the seminar here. So me personally, I was an athlete my entire life. I was a very, very bad athlete. I played sports. I played pretty much everything: baseball, track, basketball, football. Wasn't good at any of them. I was just horribly unathletic. And I was an overweight kid, which made it also much more difficult. My junior year of high school, I started wrestling later in middle school. My junior year of high school, something switched, and for some reason, I just became a really good wrestler. So I went from being a wrestler to I wrestled in high school, wrestled in college some. Then I became a professional fighter after that. So I fought professionally from age 19 to 27. Haven't fought in 6 years. I actually want to fight again, but that's a whole other story. But a lot of this stuff is stuff that I've put together myself, but it's also what I learned through school. So I actually went to school for nutrition and dietetics. I have 2 bachelor's degrees. I have one in nutrition and dietetics and then one in nutrition and food. And I'm finishing a master's degree in nutrition and food currently. To do that, my end goal is to have a PhD in nutrition and dietetics or nutritional biochemistry. So we'll see. But this stuff is going to be based off of the sciencey, like the real sciencey stuff I've learned through school, but then the things that I've just kind of learned on my own that may be a little bit more applicable to athletes. So I'm going to talk to athletes and parents in this because obviously I would imagine most of you don't buy your own groceries and you don't cook your own food. So I'm going to have to talk to both. There's going to be some of this stuff that's a lot of numbers and a little confusing, and it might be really, really boring. I'll try to go through that and make sense, but buzz through it a little bit quicker. But it's going to be a lot more applicable to the parents and the care providers. So with this, I'm actually going to have to use this right here, so just make sure you're good. I just don't want to step on your stuff, buddy. So I'm going to go through what to eat, how much to eat, the benefits of it, and everything. Keep in mind, when I'm telling you what to eat, I'm not saying that anything else is bad. Like, I'm not going to say that there's ever a good food versus bad food. The entire premise of what I teach and what I teach athletes and what I teach general population and even my own kids, I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, is there's no really such thing as good food and bad food. Food doesn't have a moral value. Like there's no morality to food. There's just food that better supports your goal, and there's food that doesn't necessarily support your goal so much. But there's nothing good and bad about food. It's just food. Make sure I move this because I will trip on it. Remember, I'm not an athlete. Okay, so this first part, when we're looking at what to eat, this entire thing is just going to be based off of the types of foods that we can eat in moderation, or the types of foods that we can eat as much as we want of. So when I say eat, I just mean you can literally eat just about as much as this stuff as you could possibly ever want, and you're not going to have any issues. You're not going to have weight issues, performance issues, any of that. Meat, fowl, fish, seafood, eggs, those are going to be your proteins. All these things are kind of the same thing to me. Those are all meats, but different people classify them differently. Those are going to be your primary proteins. You're not going to overeat that stuff. No one overeats steak. They don't eat so much steak that they gain weight from that. Veggies, roots, tubers, those are things like potatoes, onions, carrots, bulbs, herbs and spices. Those are going to be your carbohydrates. Your fats, animal fat, so the fat that's found on the steaks and the chicken, things there. Olives, olive oil, coconut oil, avocado, and avocado oil. Those are going to be your primary fats. So if it's on this list, you can pretty much eat as much of it as you want, and you're going to be okay. No one ever got obese because they ate way too much of any of this stuff. It just doesn't happen. Your body can process through this stuff, use it as fuel very efficiently. It's just not going to be an issue. Okay? Then we're going to get down to here. When I get down to limit, all I mean is this stuff. Once we get a little bit lower on the list, it's things that you do need to limit a little bit, because the more of that you do start to put in, the calories start to add up and we start to have a little bit more inflammation and issues there. Nuts, seeds, and fruit. Obviously, there's nothing unhealthy about any of those things. Like nuts aren't unhealthy, seeds aren't unhealthy, fruit isn't unhealthy. The only issue is they're lower volume, meaning they're a little bit smaller, but higher calorie. So nuts and seeds, they are a good source of fat, but they're not going to be nearly as good as the fat you get from animals, olives, coconut, avocado oil. That's the only difference there and why we should limit it. Fruit, same thing. There's nothing wrong whatsoever with fruit. I would never tell you there's anything wrong with fruit. I'm just saying you can't really eat as much fruit as you want without having some issue. It can contribute to an increase in calories above what you want. Avoid grains. Everyone knows what grains are. There's going to be wheat, barley, rye, things like that, cereal grains. Again, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying if you're looking to just get the best bang for your buck, eat as much of something as you want. Those are one of those things that you can't really eat as much as you want. You will start to have issues. They're highly inflammatory, and it starts to bring up those calories quite a bit. Maybe dairy, supplements, and everything else. Everything else literally means you can really do what you want. I'm not the type that I sit here and tell people and condemn people for eating, burgers and fries. I don't care what you eat. It's your life. I'm just telling you that it's not the best decision for all of the goals that are out there, but it can fit. In fact, I recommend that you have those things in your diet. Dairy, when I say maybe with dairy, it really depends on your goal. So dairy is absolutely the best possible formula for growth. There's a reason mothers of all animals produce milk. It's nature's formula for growth. It's anabolic, it's perfectly balanced. Everything about it is designed to help you grow. So kids, teens, I highly encourage dairy consumption if you don't have a dairy issue. The problem is, and where this becomes a maybe, is at some point in our life, we no longer need to grow. And that's usually when we're adults. So if you don't have a goal of growing anymore, dairy is probably not the best thing for you because you will continue to grow with it. So that becomes the only issue with that. When I'm talking about dairy, when I'm talking about like that, I'm talking about full fat dairy. I don't ever really recommend anyone does like any other kind. Like kids specifically, there's really no reason to choose skim milk or lower fat milk than there is whole milk. Again, it's nature's perfect formula for growth. So when we start messing with that, we start messing up the formula. And with kids and teens, we actually want that. With adults, my suggestion, if you're trying to avoid the fat calories and stuff in dairy, just don't drink dairy because again, it's you're kind of not getting the benefit of it to begin with. And so that's kind of my only deal with that. Cheese is always going to be a little bit better than just drinking milk. When I'm saying cheese, I'm not really talking about the stuff that you can just buy in like a resealable bag at Walmart or the grocery store. Like hard cheeses are going to be your better choices for there. They're the ones that are, unfortunately, they are a lot more expensive. Supplements are a maybe. It depends on if you need it. So protein can be a really good way to increase our protein intake if we can't eat enough dead animal. That's a very good way to get that up there. Things like creatine, vitamins, minerals. These are good things that can benefit athletes. I will never tell a kid or teen that they should take something like creatine. I'll never tell a parent that you should give your kid creatine. But what I will say is when my 4-year-old is a teenager, he will be taking creatine. So I'm not telling you what to do with your kids or what, but I'm telling you I feel 100% safe there with all the research that's provided. There's a long history of research with creatine. It's the most researched supplement in history. Nothing's been, even anabolic steroids have not been researched and studied as much as creatine, and only good comes from it. In fact, all the newer research on creatine is focused around brain health, and they're starting to show that it's even far better for brain health than anything else out there on the market. So it's one of those that from a young age to elderly can benefit from creatine.
What, Tyler?
Yep.
Is that going to cause them to bloat up?
Yeah. So the big issues with creatine and what people are afraid of is it kind of got hijacked years ago by like the powerlifting community and people started to think that creatine makes you get bulky and this and that. Creatine was actually created for Olympic level sprinters who need to be lean and fast and quick. It actually increases ATP energy. So in simple terms, creatine makes your muscles work harder, faster, and longer. Those are huge benefits to every athlete. Creatine doesn't have a caloric value. There's no calories in creatines, so therefore it can't contribute any way whatsoever to actual fat gain. It's impossible. Like if it doesn't have calories, it can't contribute to fat gain whatsoever. It can make you hold a little bit of water. There's nothing wrong with that. Your body has to have water. If you don't have water, you die. It's a very, very beneficial thing. So when it's helping you hold water, all it's doing is pulling water into your muscles. And again, that is a nutrient transport system to your muscles. So that's actually a really good thing. So I am again, I'm not going to tell you should take creatine. I'm just telling you as soon as I feel like my kid is in competitive sports, he will be taking creatine. The studies and everything on it are astronomical in terms of the benefits of it.
Is some creatine better than other creatine?
So there's a ton of different kinds on the market now, but the best research has still been shown on creatine monohydrate, which fortunately is the cheapest. There's a bunch of different I can't remember some of the newer types even. They keep kind of coming out with new versions of it, but basic creatine monohydrate is still going to be the best. I remember when it first came out, I believe it was the Germans kind of had like the only way to make it. And you'd pay like $60 a month for it, and now $60 of it would last you well over a year. It's just such a cheap thing to make, and everyone's figured it out. But yeah, just the very basic one, the 100% creatine monohydrate. If you are interested in taking it, you take it the same time every day. It doesn't matter when you take it. So I actually take mine in the morning with coffee. I'll either put it in my coffee or just drink it at the same time, because I'd never forget my coffee, so I know I'll never forget my creatine. Okay, so again, just to put a cap on that, this stuff you can eat literally as much as you want and you're going to be okay. You don't have to weigh, measure, worry about how much of it you're eating. You're going to be fine. When we start getting to this, it's still okay, but that's where it gets a little bit trickier. It can contribute a little bit more to weight gain and inflammation and things that we kind of want to avoid. Okay. What's up? No.
Youth athletes, let's say younger athletes that you've worked with, or you know, what would you say is the macronutrient that they're usually not getting enough of?
So it depends on gender. Young females are very, very likely to undereat protein. It's very common to undereat protein, and the boys are a little bit better on the protein. It's very unlikely for them to actually get the amount of carbohydrates that they need, especially as they get more into sports and they start caring about how they look. They start hearing all the misinformation about carbohydrates, so they start pulling the carbohydrates back because they feel like they don't need carbohydrates because they want abs, and it's just not true. You need carbs. So that would be the biggest thing, and what I would tell all of you guys, you need all of this stuff, and we'll get more into that and how much and why it is so important. But especially at a competitive level, there's no one out there who has gotten to a competitive level from any diet that had them limit this top thing. There's a lot of athletes out there that will tell you that like a vegetarian diet is great for them and this and that, but they didn't get to that point on a vegetarian diet. They got to that point eating this way, and then they might have taken on a vegetarian diet or a carnivore diet later on, but it's not what got them to that point. And it's usually why a lot of them don't last long and they start getting injured. All right, so this is the part we're going to get into how much. This is going to be a little bit more for the parents, or if you just really love nutrition science, when we get into the numbers. So I'll go through this and I'll try to make sure it's understandable, but I'm not going to spend too much time on it just because it's not going to be a main focal point for them. So when I say BW, this is going to be your body weight. So simple mathematics, everyone has a calculator on them now. I always say, like, I remember in school, our teacher told us we couldn't use a calculator because we couldn't rely on having a calculator the rest of our life. The teachers were lying because now we always have a calculator on us. And I love that because I'm horrible at math. So body weight times 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, or 10. That is going to be around the calorie range for weight loss, no matter who you are. So I put 15 as the first one because if anyone's ever doing this, I prefer them start with 15 for a couple weeks before they ever try that body weight times 14, or they ever try body weight times 13, 12, 11, 10. And kids, I mean, if you want to, I encourage you just to do this math just to see, because you're probably going to find out this is a lot more calories than you thought. Because especially a lot of us, we get wound up on that. We see that 2,000 calories a day is like the gold standard, and it just isn't. This can actually be a lot more for some people. So this is going to be body weight times 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, or 10. That's the calories that'll make most people lose weight. A lot of people look at that and it's astronomical, like high for them. They can't imagine that they ever eat that much. I promise you do, you just don't realize it. Okay, maintenance. This is going to be the best spot for most athletes. And this is going to be to maintain your weight or just focus on performance. Okay, no athlete ever, especially at a young age, needs to worry about this. Again, this is going to be more for the parents. Most of our athletes, they're going to be here or here. So for maintenance, it's going to be body weight times 17, 16, or 15. Those are going to be the calorie range just to maintain the energy levels that we need to grow and the energy level that we need to perform at our best. And that's good to do because I just want you to see how many calories those are. So a lot of parents come to me and their kids are eating them out of house and home, and they're afraid that their kids are eating too much. Especially if they're an athlete, they need a lot of calories. It's kind of surprising how many calories they need. Gain, body weight times 20, 19, 18, or 17. Those are going to be around the roundabout numbers of how many calories someone needs if they're trying to gain weight. Gain, body weight times 20, 19, 18, or 17. Those are going to be around the roundabout numbers of how many calories someone needs if they're trying to gain weight. 17. Those are going to be around the roundabout numbers of how many calories someone needs if they're trying to gain weight. Yeah, so again, these are all just going to be basic numbers. You can go around that, but you have to be consistent with it. So especially parents, if you're going to try this out, you can't do body weight times 15, do it for 2 days, and then say you didn't lose weight and say it just didn't work. Like I'm talking like 2 weeks, then go down to 14 for 2 weeks, then go down to 13. We need to like really take our time with that. Okay, if you really want to get into the finer details of it, especially parents, or if you're just interested in this, I start everyone with what's called an isocaloric diet. And this means that we're just starting with even calories on everything. So we have the same calories of protein, the same calories of carbohydrates, and the same calories of fat. Basic math to do that. So you need to know first that every gram of protein has 4 calories, every gram of carbohydrate has 4 calories, and every gram of fat has 9 calories. So we just have to know that little bit of math to do this next part. So you're going to take the number you got from this. If you're doing this, go ahead and just find that number, whichever one. Look at your goal. If you're a kid, don't even do this. I might just erase it because I don't want you to even look at it. So no matter what, I don't care if you think you're overweight, if you think all this, number one, you shouldn't think that. You're not going to put this number in. Don't put 10 or 15, or you can put 15 because it's here too, but anything under that, don't even look at that number. Okay, take that number, you're going to divide it by 3. So then we should have a new number. Raina, where's? All right. So I'll help you all. So if this number, and I'm going to use 2100, that's probably way too little for any of you, but I'm going to use it because again, I'm not really good at math and this makes it very easy. So if I take 2100, I divide by 3. That is 700, correct? Yep. All right. So I get 700, that's 700 calories of protein, 700 calories of carbs, 700 calories of fat. So if you remember, there's 4 calories per gram of protein, 4 calories per gram of carb, 9 calories per gram of fat. So take this number that you got, when you divide this by 3, divide by 4, 700 divided by 4, 175. So I have 175 grams of protein, because this is the same, because it's 4, 175 grams of carbs. What's divided by 9? 78. 78 grams of fat. Does that make sense to anyone who wants to know that stuff? So again, we have our calorie goal. We did that with the first part. We divide by 3 if you're doing an isocaloric diet. Then you divide that by 4 because there's 4 calories per gram of protein to find your grams. Same thing with carbs to find your grams. Fat is 9 to find your grams. This is just where I start everyone. Based on how they feel and how they perform over the next couple weeks, we start to adjust these numbers. These 2 percentages will move up and down according to whatever fuels you the best. Protein will really never go down for most people. We usually want to keep that the same. For athletes, sometimes that'll drop to around 30 just because we need room to put more carbohydrates in. A lot of my professional fighters, they're down to like 20% because I have girls that weigh 130 pounds that are eating like 500 grams of carbohydrates because they have to, because they need the energy to do what they're doing. It's a lot of carbs, it's very tough. So we have to put those in. So my suggestion, I start everyone here and then just see what fuels you best. Some people are going to do better eventually with adding more fat and lowering their carbs. Some people do better with higher carbs and lower fat. Just depends on you. Protein's going to remain pretty much constant. Does that part make sense, the math on that?
For some of these guys, if they were going to try that and got into this, what are some things or the way they feel they should look at? Like, how would they know they're fueled better by carbs or fat?
Yeah, so number one, you got to look at your sport and what your sport needs, what it requires from you. So you have something called glycolytic activity. Glycolytic activity is going to be most ball sports. These are the sports that are very fast burst, slow down, like move quick, slow down. Cross country would be like an exception. I guess in some ways swimming would be an exception. But most of your sports that there's not just a steady pace the entire time, the pace can change. Those sports usually need more carbohydrates than they do fat. So you would be at a higher number of carbohydrates than fat. I would pull this down a little bit and pull this up. So again, that's called glycolytic activity. That means you need glycogen to fuel that. Without enough glycogen, what happens is your body starts to steal your protein. So it's called a gluconeogenesis. Your body starts to pull from your protein to make glycogen for fuel. So pretty much everybody of all ages now know that we need protein to help build muscles and to get strong and grow. what I'm telling you is if you're not getting enough carbs, your body will start to steal your protein from what you need for growth just to fuel you. So that's where you start to see a lot of issues with athletes where they're not getting enough carbohydrates, and it can stunt growth and cause all kinds of issues when it comes to that. Like I said, I was a wrestler and a fighter, and what we would see a lot, what you see a lot in wrestling, I don't know if wrestling's big around here, but if everyone knows a wrestler, but it's very common to see like adult male wrestlers especially that haven't really grown at all since like the early days of high school. And what they said, these are wrestlers that were competitive all the way like at a middle school level, and what you started to find was they restricted so much at a young age that they stunted their growth. It's very, very, very common in wrestling. It's just the nature of that sport, and they don't know nutrition very well. We just know sweat and lose a lot of weight. Fat, again, you might be a little bit better to eat higher fat if you're an athlete that does something like swimming, cross country, something that's a long duration. In fact, as I say, I don't even think swimming would count for that. Swimming would probably still be higher carbs. It just depends on your sport. As far as how you feel, if you're feeling extremely tired, so if you're following one or the other, you're feeling extremely tired after practices and training, that's usually a sign. The first thing I'm going to do is tell you need more carbohydrates. If you're eating low carb, you're going to be tired. You don't have the fuel source you need for the energy that you need. Okay, with that, where you start to see the issues with that, especially at your all's age, you all are what is like the main age group here?
These are probably mostly high school.
Yeah. So in high school is when people start really doing things like they start caring about how they look. They start paying too much attention to what fitness people on Instagram say. Most of them are idiots. Not you guys, most of the people on Instagram talking about this stuff are idiots. And you start caring too much about what they say, and you forget the part where you are an athlete, and you have to feel that. So what happens is, especially at this age, people start following fad diets because maybe their favorite influencer does it, or their favorite movie star started talking about it, or any of that. So they'll start doing these things. Unknowingly, what this always pretty much does is tank your metabolism, and it sets you up for failure from then on the future. Any diet that's telling you to restrict something in particular, always avoid it. Like you need to avoid that at a young age. When it comes to adults, I'm a little bit more forgiving for that. Some people find they just do better with something. No kid should be avoiding an entire food group, specifically if you're an athlete. The truly ironic thing about this, so if we has anyone heard of a carnivore diet? It's kind of popular right now. You really just eat meat. Like you can eat as much meat, butter, dairy, all of this stuff as you want. It sounds really fun for guys. Like guys think that sounds awesome. But then you also can't do things like fruits, vegetables, grains. So first off, any diet that's telling you there's something dangerous about fruits and vegetables, just walk away. Then everyone knows what a vegetarian diet is. You just don't eat meat. So you eat everything else and you don't eat meat. The ironic and entertaining part is they both have the same results. So if I take someone from a standard American diet, just eating what the average American does, which the standard American does not have a very good diet, and I put them on a vegetarian diet, they've done this for like 6, 8, 10, and 12 weeks, you do notice improved blood levels, improved hormone levels, there's normally weight loss, and improved energy and improved cognition, like their brains are working better. So they will tell you it's because they eliminated dangerous things like meat and this and that. Well, ironically, if you put someone on a carnivore diet from a standard American diet, you put them on a carnivore diet that is 100, like it's a complete 180 from that, they literally get the same results. They see weight loss, they see improved brain function, they see better hormones, better blood levels, all this stuff starts to do the exact same thing. So like they're kind of lying, like there's a lie there somewhere. And where that lie is, the omission, like the leaving out of the one thing isn't what's getting you those points. What happens is when you are on a vegetarian diet, you're not on a McDonald's diet. When you are on a carnivore diet, you're not on a McDonald's diet. It's not that you're leaving some food group out that was dangerous or it was causing you to have these issues. It's that you were leaving out all the junk. So what those diets are doing, they're just having you eliminate the other stuff. Like you're eliminating all the high calorie junk foods and this and that. And that's why you're seeing those improved levels. But theoretically and realistically, you could combine those two, and this is what you have. This is a carnivore diet and vegetarian diet, and you get all those results without eliminating anything. And this has been tested over and over. They've studied this. The only people that still refuse to acknowledge the studies are vegetarians and carnivores and people that are following those diets. Same thing with a keto diet. There are some benefits to a keto diet. A keto diet is kind of like carnivore, but you can have some fruits and vegetables. It's really, really high fat. As anyone, this sounds really weird, but like if anyone's ever sweated and like you smelled like ammonia when you sweat, like you have like this weird chemical smell, that's ketones burning, and it usually just means you didn't have enough carbohydrates. But ketogenic people kind of smell like that a lot. Like that's kind of a goal that you are in ketosis. It really is. Like when you're sweat, you could smell like ammonia. A keto diet is medicinal, so it does have some uses. Like epilepsy, it can be huge for. People with brain trauma, like a keto diet can be very, very beneficial. I've had 2 like diagnosed traumatic brain injuries from fighting. I'm in the small group that they've studied that a keto diet actually gives you insomnia, and I could stay up all night. I can't sleep if I do it. But it can have medicinal purposes. A keto diet was never made for aesthetics. It was never designed as a way to make you look better. It was never designed, certainly was never designed for you to feel, to perform better. It's not an athlete's diet. It could just be a medicinal diet that might help you treat some illness. And even that, most of the time, that illness, when they just take them from a standard American diet and they put them on a balanced diet, they still get the same results. But so again, I say all that just to kind of say, like, fad diets, just avoid them. Like there's no benefit an athlete should be on any of these. Like they're not going to help you with your sport. They're not going to ultimately help you lose weight long term. Because here's the thing. If you're wanting a successful diet, it needs to be a diet that you can stick to, and it needs to be a diet you can stick to for the rest of your life. Like if you love donuts, that's fine. If you love donuts, you love cake, you're not going to do well on a carnivore diet. It's just not, because you're not going to be able to stick with it. If you love meat, you'd suck at a vegetarian diet because it's eliminating something you really like. Most people, if we're honest with ourselves, we like a little bit of everything. So if we choose anything that eliminates something, we're not going to stick with it very long. Okay, a little bit more numbers, then it gets into the more basic stuff. So when we're talking about how many calories we burn, it's important to look at how those calories are processed. We have a bad habit of only assuming we burn calories when we work out, and not only is it not true, it's very, very minimal. I'm not a fan at all of fitness watches for watching how many calories you burn. I love fitness trackers for other reasons. But the calories you burn, number one, they've done studies showing that you can be up to like 80% inaccurate, some 90%. It can be horribly inaccurate for how many calories you burn. This is because that watch can only use a few metrics to test that out. It can look at your heart rate. If you entered your weight into it, it knows those things, but it knows nothing about your metabolism. It knows nothing about your lean body mass. It knows nothing about the things that accurately give you a calorie measure. And what people do is they chase that number. So I see a lot of people, and it's fine. It's fine. I do kind of go after these people on Instagram some, but they'll like after workout they post how many calories they burned on their watch. That's fine if it motivates you, but it doesn't mean anything. Like it's not very beneficial to your goals whatsoever. And so why I want people to see that is because I don't want people exercising to punish themselves or exercise because they think that is going to be the number one thing that helps them lose weight. In fact, studies show that long-term weight loss, if I have a group of people who are not working out and a group of people who are working out, there's no different. Like the people that work out have no greater chance of maintaining weight loss than the people who aren't working out. This is like study after study with long-term. I'll dive back in and show you why working out is important, but it's honestly not as important for weight loss as people would think. It's important for other things, and we'll get into that. So don't kick me out because you think I'm gonna tell people to quit working out. Anyway, so what I want you to see is how calories are burned. This is very important. I'll do my best to make it make sense, but it's going to be very, very important even for you all. Basal metabolic rate is 70% of the calories you burn in a day. This is just the calories you burn just being alive. So these are the calories. If you had that number that you found right here, if you still remember that number, if you multiply that by 0.7, because remember, move the decimal too. That's the one thing I remember from high school math, I guess. If you move that, it's probably middle school math. If you move that over 0.7, that's how many calories you burn just being alive. So if you stayed in bed all day and did nothing, you're still burning about that many calories. There's a lot of people who are looking at me that probably think they don't even eat that much right now. And if not, you're just way under eating calories. So this, again, this is just what you burn just being alive. This is basal metabolic rate. This is for your bodily processes. This is what happens. From there, we have non-exercise activity thermogenesis. These are the calories you burn doing everything that's not working out. This is walking, this is fidgeting, it's on your phone, it's typing. This is everything that is some form of activity, but it has nothing to do with working out whatsoever. That's 15% of the calories you burn during the day. Okay, then we have the thermic effect of food. I'll just go over here. Thermic effect of food. This is how many calories you burn just digesting food. So the food you eat, your body has to burn calories to process through that. That's going to be 10% of the calories you burn throughout the day. The reason protein is so important, especially like I said, females have a tendency to undereat protein. Protein has a higher thermic effect than carbohydrates and fat, like significantly higher. So what that means is you actually burn more calories eating protein than you do eating carbohydrates or fat. So again, that's why it is important. It will actually increase your metabolism. There's no supplement on the market out there that's telling you it will increase your metabolism that can actually do that. Eating more protein can actually increase your metabolism. Last, the way we burn calories is exercise activity thermogenesis. So literally the least way that you burn calories in a day is going to be through your exercise. That is the least important way to burn calories. That shocks a lot of people, especially because we think that that's how we have to lose weight. And a lot of the times when we do start working out, we start losing weight, and that does make sense. But it's because maybe we didn't have that and we start adding that in. So we have a 5% greater output than we did. You will start to lose weight. But also what we find is other things start to increase. So the reason working out is important in specific proper workouts, because working out will help you build lean muscle mass. Lean muscle mass is the way that we increase our basal metabolic rate. So again, this is the way we burn the most calories, just keeping you alive. The more muscle mass you have, it takes more energy to keep you alive, and your muscles in themselves are going to increase your metabolism. So again, it's not that working out, exercising isn't important, it's vastly important, but it's important because it increases this. The calories you burn during the workout itself aren't doing much of anything. Those calories don't matter. That's why, when people ask me like what's the most beneficial type of workout for weight loss, it's always going to be lifting weights. And again, that's a proven time and time again, lifting weights is going to be far superior than just cardio when it comes to long-term weight loss, because it's adding muscle mass, which is going to help you burn calories 70% of the time. It's going to be burning calories while you sleep and all of that. The cardiovascular training that you're doing is just usually contributing to this 5%, which isn't much to begin with. You do need both. You need cardio. Your heart is a muscle and you have to work that. But you need to be lifting weights. There's not a single athlete that I would ever say, even cross country, which is just running, you still need to be lifting weights. You still need to be contributing to that muscle mass. This becomes increasingly important to women as well, because the way to increase bone density, which is a more concern for women, is to increase your muscle density. Bone density starts dropping off rapidly as we age, especially after 30. The way we increase that is by having a higher muscle density, especially by that age. I can't remember what the stat is, but pretty much if you haven't put on the muscle by age 30, it's going to be extremely hard to put on enough that you need to maintain that bone density. You're still going to do better if you don't, but before 30 is when it's the most important for females particularly to put on that muscle mass. That's the best part about the fitness community now. We were talking about yesterday is it's, even when I was younger, even when I was in high school, it was very unpopular for girls to lift weights or be muscular. Girls were afraid of that. And now it's actually a goal girls are chasing, and that's awesome. It's such a good thing. They should. Any questions on that part? Okay, then we'll get into you guys. This will be a little bit better, so make sure you can see this. If you got to scoot over, you can. If you don't want to fool with all these numbers because like you have school and things to do, and you don't have time to be doing this, you can do this, and this will work great for you, for adults as well, because maybe you just don't want to fool with this. It's as simple as this. So this can be based off goals. We can do it off goals or just our workouts. If our goal is to lose weight 3 times a day, maybe 4, 3 times a day, just make your plate look like this. Take your plate, half of your plate needs to be color, which is carbs or fruits and vegetables. 1/4 of your plate needs to be carbs, which are going to be ideally these things here. 1/4 of your plate needs to be protein. Do that 3 times a day, you're going to be losing weight. That being said, it's not going to work if this carbohydrate thing, I start stacking this up. This isn't a 3D view, okay? So like this could be a pancake, but this doesn't need to be a stack of pancakes this way. Does that make sense? And you guys, same kind of thing. You can do this with school lunches, anything like this. I work with some high school wrestlers, and this is literally like how we manage theirs when they're doing this. Moderate intensity, again, I'm not concerned with you guys losing weight, so this one doesn't matter. And then add fat, so like you just add fat to that. Athletes, youth, you guys are gonna be doing this one, or these are people who just wanna maintain their weight, either way. So you take this plate, you take this one, you add a little bit more carbohydrates, same thing, except we're also gonna add 2 to 3 snacks per day. So this is gonna be what your 3 meals look like. So a little bit of protein, a good bit of fruits and vegetables, and a good bit of carbohydrates, and then add some fat, and then add 2 or 3 snacks in the day as well with that. If you're trying to gain weight, or you just have a really high intensity sport, so even if you're an athlete, you're going to be one of these two. If your sport is really high intensity, or say it's like a game day, or a day when you know you have a really hard practice, you're going to be better off doing this. Again, 2 to 3 snacks a day, and you're just going to do even more carbohydrates. So again, as we need to perform, as our workouts get tougher, or on game days, we need more carbs. That's the basis here. So if you do this, again, like this is going to manage your weight just fine. I've been transitioning a lot of my clients, even the ones that were doing this, to more of this method, and they're getting the same results as they did when we were doing the hard set mathematics. So you'll be fine with this. Again, like this is completely doable for anyone in high school. This is completely doable for really anyone, period. You can do this at a restaurant. You can do this anywhere. There's nowhere that this isn't applicable.
So Tyler, let's say, so most athletes in here that come to the gym as well, they'll have up to a 2-hour practice and they'll train with us in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 3 hours. Is that going to put them into high intensity every time? Or is that
That's pretty high intensity. That being said, if you're like, you got to be honest with yourself. If you're like me, you didn't play. So like it might have been game day, but you didn't get in much. I didn't do much. Like that wouldn't have been me. Then when I started wrestling and becoming a good wrestler, this was going to be very, very much me. Wrestling is just ridiculously intense. The problem is with me, when I should have been this way, I wasn't doing. I'm going to get into this. I'm going to wrap it up with all this. When I should have been doing this, I was doing this, and I'm going to get into that with you guys towards the end. But again, it depends. Like if you are truly working hard, your sport's tough, like you're playing a lot, you have hard practices, like you'll probably be a little bit more towards this. And always err on, again, especially if you're eating these kind of things, like you're not going to overeat. Like it's not going to be a fear or concern. You guys can tune out a little bit on this part, but adults, it is very important. When people start to see these numbers or they start to do this, a lot of times the first thing they do is they look at that and they look at me and think that there's no way they were ever eating that much to begin with. Studies have shown that these are among dieters. So these aren't just average people. These are people actually following a diet. When they took them and interviewed them about that, they're underreporting their calories by 47% and they're overestimating their energy output by 51%. What that means is among dieters, they're eating 47% more than they think they are, and they're usually doing 51% less workout than they think they are, burning 51% less calories. That's coming usually because, again, they're valuing too much what their watch says, and they're not burning nearly as many calories as they actually think they are throughout the day. And they're underreporting the calories because maybe they're really good, like they're using MyFitnessPal. Maybe they're really good like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they don't track Saturday and Sunday, and they're eating a lot more on Saturday and Sunday than they thought that they were. But those numbers are pretty hard set, even on short-term and long-term studies that have shown this. Usually dieters who are reporting that they're not losing weight, and that's a goal, so this is for weight loss goals, that's normally the culprit. They're eating a lot more than they think they are, and they're working out a lot less than they think they are. When it comes to this, the working out portion, or the calorie, I keep saying working out, I don't want that. The calorie burn portion, they're burning less than they think they are because they're usually doing a lot less of this than they need to be. They're focusing way too much on this. So they're focusing a lot more on the 5% and a lot less on the NEAT. So you take that, you see this a lot with like, I'll just Well, you really see it a lot with any kind of gym, but I used to see it a lot. I used to own a CrossFit gym. We would see it a lot with my CrossFit athletes. So you might come in and do a 10, 20, 25-minute workout, and like you're laying in the floor in a puddle of sweat and shaking, and it was a horrible workout. So you feel really good, but then you go home and you sit all day, or you go to work and you sit all day. You didn't burn you didn't burn many calories for the day. You had a really intense workout for a short period of time, but then you didn't really contribute much to your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, so you didn't do much. The number one thing I have people do, like when they start with me, if they've been following a plan and they can't lose weight, I'm like, okay, you take your fitness tracker, which I told you sucks for the calorie burn, but look at your steps. I want you to get 10 to 12,000 steps per day. That's just an easy way to increase your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Some people, like especially like nurses, people like that, 10 to 12 might just be a everyday thing for you because you're walking a lot. Increase that to 15. So again, that's a very low stress, low impact. It doesn't really like have a negative impact on you whatsoever. It's going to allow you to still get your workouts in if you want, but that's a way to increase that 15%. Since there. Okay, I'm going to go into this now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, and some seminars I do this at the beginning, but I want to talk about it towards the end here. The issues I had. So I was an overweight kid. As I said, I played every sport. I practiced a lot. I was constantly moving. I was like, we lived in the woods growing up, so I was constantly outside. I've never owned a video game system in my life. We didn't own a TV until I was 12 years old, so it wasn't even a thing that I was never sitting still. I was always doing something, but I was still an overweight kid. We also were pretty poor growing up, so we also didn't have a lot of food. Like at a young age, I knew what serving sizes were, because to us, like if I'll say a can of tuna, I don't remember ever doing tuna, but if a can of tuna said it had 4 serving sizes, that meant it fed 4 people. Like so I didn't eat a lot of food. I didn't have junk food. I had my first soft drink when I was in 6th grade because my middle school had soft drinks. So now I could actually buy one if I had some money. I had my first regular soft drink at 6th grade. I had my last regular one ever, my 8th grade year, because my wrestling coach just told me it would make me faster if I quit drinking them, so I did. He was kind of right, but that wasn't. But anyway, so what I'm saying is I was an overweight kid, and I was, by definition, kind of doing everything right. Like I wasn't eating bad foods. I wasn't eating much food at all. What kids didn't understand and what kind of psych I got picked on pretty much my entire life for being an overweight kid and for like not having nice clothes and things like that. That's what led me to wrestling. But I was getting picked on a lot and stuff, and I didn't really understand it because I knew that not only was I not eating like junk food, like I was even just hungry sometimes. Like I wasn't eating a lot of food, so I didn't understand it. And I'm just now getting to the point where I actually kind of do understand that. I'll look back and I know what these things were. And part of this is going to just be genetics. Genetics are going to play a role, and you can't do anything about that. Like there's nothing you can do about that. Some people are just genetically going to be a little bit more overweight at a young age. I was in that group. In fact, there's something called a BMI rebound that normally starts to happen around that age, around like 4, 5, and 6. Almost all kids start to gain a little bit more weight around that time. It's very common. Most kids do. The problem is, and where this can contribute to long-term weight gain, around that age is also where kids start to be introduced more towards things like video games, TV shows, and this and that. So while the BMI rebound is happening, we're also finding ways to decrease our activity, and we're developing habits of being lazy. And we start to see that around that same time, so that kind of makes it stay a lot for some kids. Again, though, that's not everyone. Like I said, I didn't have any of those things. I wasn't lazy. I just held on to the weight. It was a bit of a genetic thing. So then, once I started wrestling, I went, like one summer, I went from 5'9", 213 pounds to 6 foot, 178. It was literally just in a matter of a few months. My parents went from not having good jobs to both of them having like significantly good jobs. So for the first time ever, I had like nice clothes and all this, and all the kids that started picking on me started liking me, and then I didn't like them. I was a jerk to them because I thought they were jerks for suddenly thinking I was okay. But anyway, so I started doing that, and I started getting addicted to no longer being the kid that was getting made fun of. Like I never wanted that again because it sucked. So I wrestled. With wrestling, it's a weight class sport. You have to be a certain weight to compete. You get addicted to what that scale says constantly. So after that, I wrestled in school. And then after that, unknowingly, I didn't even realize it because it's just really common in wrestling. In fact, sometimes really bad coaches even encourage it. I developed an eating disorder because I was so addicted to no longer being the overweight kid. And all I knew was these are the things that helped me lose that weight. And that was, I mean, I don't know, does anyone here wrestle? So you know how hard wrestling practice is. It's tough. Like it's the like I say, even as a professional fighter, the hardest day of my fight practices don't touch the easiest days of wrestling. Wrestling is just insanely difficult and tough. But I was doing that, but I was eating like this. Like I was eating like someone that was trying to lose weight, and I was wrestling, which demands a lot of calories. So what I was doing, I was kind of hurting my metabolism a lot. And during that time, I would see my friends and teammates, and this is very common, that had a hard time making weight and they didn't really know how. They would start making themselves throw up, or they just wouldn't eat for days. We would wear like trash bags over yourself and put sweatsuits on to go to school, which that's been outlawed now. So if you see anyone doing it, it's actually illegal. Some coaches just ignore it, but they can be in big trouble. And we were just doing these things. Well, because of that, I'm like, well, that's how I lost weight. I'm going to keep doing it. So I battled pretty much every day an eating disorder for 5 years. And then it took about 2 more years before it was constantly gone, consistently gone. But I battled that for a long time, even while I was in school learning about nutrition. Learning about nutrition is one of the things that helped me actually bounce out of an eating disorder, because I learned this stuff. Like I learned the importance of food and why I actually needed it to fuel myself for all those goals. And I realized how much I was restricting myself. I battled both anorexia and bulimia. So anorexia, you just starve yourself. Bulimia, you make yourself throw up if you do eat something bad. And honestly, like looking back, the bad stuff I was eating, what I considered bad, was probably the only things I should have been eating to keep my calories up to help me with the anorexia. So what that did, that created an issue where for all those years, I was having a hard time. I was doing more. I owned a gym. I was a professional athlete. I was a good professional fighter as a amateur and pro altogether. I think my record's like 19-1. I was good. I was successful, but I still couldn't really put on much muscle mass. It was really strange. I couldn't put on muscle mass, and this is like my early mid-20s. Couldn't put on much muscle mass. I wasn't sleeping good. It just didn't feel right. I went to a doctor at age, it was either 26 or 27, to figure out what was wrong with me. And at that age range, for a guy, your testosterone levels should be 600 to 900. Mine were like 97. And the doctor just thought it was a misreading. He had never seen that bad messed up. So they sent me home, told me to come back in 2 weeks, and they did it, and then it was like 103. So my testosterone was just leveled out. It was horrible. So then I had some metabolic testing done. That's when they actually determined how your metabolism works. My metabolism was completely shot. So let's say I should have been at 2,000. So say my basal metabolic rate, which is the calories it takes to keep you alive, if mine should be at 2,000, mine were at like 1,500, meaning my metabolism was so messed up, I really couldn't put on muscle mass or even lose weight. My body just kind of stayed. I couldn't do anything because my basal metabolic rate was so messed up. And it was that way because of all the damage I did chasing weight loss and stuff when I was a kid. So I'm 33 now, and honestly, just in the last couple years is that my metabolism been repaired. Like I'm just now in the point where I'm actually what's called hypermetabolic. So if I get metabolic testing done, it's going to show that I actually burn more calories than the average person my age and my weight. But it's taken a long time. Again, it's really a couple decades to fix some of the damage that I've done at a young age because I was so concerned about losing weight. I was concerned about losing weight because I was overweight. So it only makes sense that if you're overweight, you need to lose. Well, not as a kid, like you don't. If you're trying to chase that right now, you have a greater chance of being overweight the rest of your life if you try to lose weight as a child. They've done that study after study showing that children that diet because they think they need to lose weight have a much greater chance of being overweight as an adult than kids that are overweight but don't diet as a kid. Reason being because they damage their metabolism at a young age. How parents can help with that, and really you guys are the only ones that can help with that, is just don't encourage weight loss. Encourage healthy habits replace bad habits with good habits, they're growing. Like as you grow, your body burns more like it needs calories for growth. So if we just establish healthy habits and eat what we need to perform and do our sports, the weight loss just happens. Like it's a side effect of eating the way you should. Weight loss for a kid or an athlete or teenager should never be a goal. It might just be a side effect of the greater goal. The greater goal needs to be eating enough to perform and grow. But if you constantly chase this, you're going to have to chase this for the rest of your life most likely, and studies show you'll never actually achieve it. This is not to discourage people, but if you are like in middle age, around, I won't say middle age, I would count me, but like 30s and 40s, if you're overweight or obese in your age, like in the 30s and 40s, the chances of you being at a healthy weight when you die later in life are slim, extremely slim. And that's why you'll see a lot of people say diets don't work. It's not true. Correct diets do, but the problem is when people are obese or overweight, we generally just chase dieting. We don't chase things like improving our healthy habits, improving those things, improving our metabolism, and then doing it. So with kids especially, it's just develop healthy habits. Like if you're drinking soft drinks, just stop. That's the one thing I would tell every kid. There's no benefit to that. Like it's not going to have any benefit to you. Just stop it. I understand the allure to them. They taste good and I get that. But if your concern is performance, and if you're an athlete, your goal needs to be to perform because it's going to help with everything else. They don't provide a performance benefit. So when you sit down to eat something, just ask yourself if this is providing a benefit to what my goal is of performance. And if it's not, try to find something else that is. Milk is going to be a better option than a soft drink. Reason being, milk is going to provide protein, carbohydrates, and fat. The soft drink is just providing pure sugar. You're just getting carbohydrates, so you're not getting a full benefit. I would much rather you do milk than that. I would rather you do, honest to God, chocolate milk than a soft drink. There's no reason for that. Then you get into diet drinks. So I get a lot of questions about diet drinks with that. Should you do diet drinks? The fear with diet drinks started from a study that was done showing aspartame is linked to cancer. The problem is, it was linked to cancer if rodents, which we are not mice, if rodents were giving extremely high doses of aspartame that aren't even really possible for a human to ever consume. Anytime that's tried to be replicated in primates or humans, they've never been able to make a correlation whatsoever of aspartame being linked to cancer whatsoever. There's not been one single time an artificial sweetener has been actually positively linked to cancer. The only thing that diet drinks have even been partially correlated to, it's a potential disruption of like gut microbiome, and even that is in large doses. Diet drinks in moderation are okay, and I would much rather someone do that than a regular drink. The gut, like I said, the only thing that they've even slightly been shown to do is to disturb gut microbiome. Regular drinks do that. The regular soft drinks do that too, but they do that with 30, 60 grams of sugar as well. So that's going to be the number one thing I tell athletes and just kids in general. If you're drinking your calories and soft drinks, stop. That's easy. We all have it in us to kind of stop doing that. And then just look at better choices. Your school lunchroom, I don't know about like your all school, but my school did not have the best healthy food, but they had really good pizza. Like I still think like outside of Italy, my high school had the best pizza in the world. We had the worst athletics with the best pizza, probably because we had the best pizza. But once I started wrestling, I started caring about those things. I'm like, you know what, I can just make a better choice. So I started going from the pizza to the grilled chicken sandwich. It didn't taste that good, but I was 17 years old and I realized that I had hopefully 80, 90 more years of my life to live. If everything didn't taste good now, it's okay. I will taste it again one day. What's up? Absolutely.
Sorry about the way the body breaks down. Like if you eat an orange, the sugar in an orange as opposed to processed sugar in like a candy bar or like a soft drink or something like that.
Yeah.
And how our body is like attuned to how that breaks down.
Yeah. That's a good question. So the way this works, and actually it folds right into this. So when we're making choices, we're looking for healthy choices, there's two things to look at. Number one, in the biggest long-term study done on this, Dr. Lane Norton is like a nutritional biochemist, was one of the main guys on this. They took two groups of people. They had one group, they controlled the calories of both groups. So they had to be in a calorie deficit. So they were eating less calories than they were burning, which is the way to lose weight. The only way to lose weight is burn less calories or burn more calories than you eat. There's no way around that. They took these groups, they did both. One group was eating only what would be deemed as healthy food. They only ate healthy food. So like these things here. The other group ate whatever they wanted. It could be candy, it could be soft drinks, it could be McDonald's. Doesn't matter, but they hit the exact same macros. So they hit the same amount of protein, carbs, and fat and calories as the other group. They all had to track those and enter them in. Not only, ironically, did they show that the group that filled those calories with whatever they want, not only did they lose, they both groups lost the exact same amount of weight because calories were accounted for. The group that actually filled their calories with whatever they want had a greater retention of lean body mass later on and kept the weight off longer than the people who just ate healthy. So it's like that had been theorized for years, but that study kind of blew a lot of minds. What that showed was, reason being, the group that only ate healthy kind of only did that for the study. The other group focused more on just eating the amount that they needed, but they didn't restrict themselves from other foods like that. So they were able to maintain it more long term because they actually enjoyed what they were doing. They could do that long term. So there's the benefit of allowing yourself to have things like that. But if we're looking at it at a base level, the benefit of eating more healthy foods and more what we would deem healthy is going to be the way our body processes it and what happens. So if I have like slow carbs versus fast carbs, like complex versus simple, essentially that's just a reflection of how your body breaks down the chains and is going to process that out into energy. Your things like this would be considered the veggies, roots, tubers, herbs, and all that, and even fruit are going to be a little bit more on the slower side, slower burning, this and that. They're going to sustain my energy longer, and they're going to make me full longer. Something like a Snickers bar, you eat it, and you're still hungry. So that's the issue. If you're someone who's tracking your calories and you're very, very strict with that, say like a Snickers bar might not be that big of a deal for you because you're going to track it. And then if for some reason that means that took up most of your carbs for the next meal, then you're going to take that out. But the average person who's not tracking, they're going to eat that Snickers bar and they're still going to eat the amount of dinner that they were going to eat because that Snickers bar did nothing to help them feel full. Same thing with like soft drinks and juices, things like that. They don't make you feel full. They don't contribute to that. So the benefit of eating those healthy foods is it's going to carry over into your satiety, how you feel, and how you manage hunger throughout the day. So it's still going to be far superior long term and to do that habitually than it is to fill your diet with bad foods. What that study really just showed, it's not showing bad food is better, it's showing people that allow themselves treats and they allow themselves that, as long as they account for it, do better long term. So they both have a place. That being said, there's some people who could only eat what would be deemed as healthy food and they're completely happy with that. It doesn't matter. That's great. That's awesome. That's just not most people. Most people, if you tell them they can only eat this for the rest of their life, they're not going to do it. And not only they're not even going to try. They're not even going to come close. They're going to eat whatever they want and they're going to fail at it. So the benefit of eating those things is going to be it does help. It helps with consistency. The benefit of sticking to the more healthier things are going to be it's going to make you fuller longer. It's going to help your energy levels. So that's why I kind of encourage, that's why I put everything else in there. It's like maybe, it just depends on the person, how you're managing that. If you're eating a lot of food and you know that, you're constantly snacking and you're constantly hungry, well, it's because you're probably doing too many of those top things because those things don't fill you up. So does that make sense? So again, I'm not saying bad food's good for you. I'm just saying, sometimes you can add that in. Food doesn't, as I said beginning, like food also, like it doesn't have a moral value. There's no good and bad. What we consider bad food, if you took that to a third world country, it would save their lives. They're starving. Like, so tell me that's a bad food and you're going to say you could save an entire group of people with it. There's no such thing as bad food. There's food that's more supportive toward our goals and foods that aren't. Likewise, when I say that, if you think about it, especially parents, and then you guys can think back on this when you were kids, I always thought it was very ironic that the food we tell kids are bad is the food that we reward kids with for good behavior. So it's like, hey, like candy is really bad, but if you listen, if you sit down and listen, I'm going to give you candy. Or if you use the bathroom on the toilet, I'm going to give you candy. So it's very confusing. We do this as parents, like we ruin the intuition of kids. Kids have a natural intuition for everything that's right, and then we start to put our adult influence in it, and we mess it up for them, and we mess them up like we're messed up. When you start to apply that, then kids start to think. They genuinely do. When you talk to kids with eating disorders and stuff, it all goes back to something parents have definitely inadvertently done. But it usually can stem back to something a parent or some adult figure has inadvertently done and led them to. Again, as a kid, you have to think about that. Well, how come, like I think I'm a good kid. I make good grades. I listen. I do everything I should. But my parents are telling me I can never have this food that I think tastes good. Like, what's wrong with that? Like, did I not earn that today? Because when I was younger, I had to earn that bad food. They've done studies showing that girls, even as young as like 3 and 4 years old, that when parents restrict them from food that's in the house, so if the food, say there's cupcakes in the house, but the parents might know you can't have that because that's bad for you. So researchers took a large group of around age 3 to 4 year old girls, and they let them have those treats that were in their family's house that their family restricted them from. They let them eat it, and then they interviewed the girls afterwards and just asked them how they felt. And they felt bad about themselves. They said, like, I felt icky, or I felt fat, or like these little like 3 and 4 year old girls reported negative feelings about themselves because their parents restricted them from something that was available in the house. 3 or 4 year old girls shouldn't even know what those things are. That's very bad, and that will set them up for that. They're going to feel like that the rest of their life. It's just the way it is. The avoidance with that, because then the question I get is, well, so should we just let our kid have whatever we want? No, you have to establish those habits at a young age. There has to be. So here's the thing: if those things aren't in the house, it's very easy to say no because it's just not available. Like, I just don't have it. So like what we do with our own, like we have a 4-year-old. Our 4-year-old, he's going to eat what we eat because he's done that. Like his whole life, he's just eaten what we eat. We eat what I would consider good, healthy food. It's always been his only option, so it's going to be what he chooses. He doesn't know another option, so it's not going to be a thing. That being said, we don't restrict him. If he goes to a grandparent's house, or like say if he goes to a birthday party or something like that and they have cupcakes, I'm not going to tell him no. I'm not going to. And honestly, if he wants more than one, I don't care how much he does, because I know that that's going to be a very small portion of this kid's life, because he's going to come back to our house and it's just not going to be an option for him. It's fine. I never restrict him, but I just make sure he's surrounded by the healthy habits and stuff that we have. So the healthy things and those foods that better support what I want for him, those have become his habits. Those are the consistency. So I always say we become what we consistently do. We don't become what we occasionally do. So if you consistently make, improved dietary choices, but every now and then you make those that won't be ideal necessarily, you're going to look like someone, you're going to perform like someone who makes consistently good choices. Like no one at the end of their life, is having health issues from occasionally having bad food. They're doing it from consistently having what we consider bad food or high calorie foods.
For these kids over here, can you give them an example of one or two of like a root, a tuber, and a bulb?
Yeah, so like a root would be a carrot, a tuber would be like a potato, and a bulb would be an onion. It's all kind of the same thing to me, but for the separation and classification of that. So you're talking like onions, potatoes. I mean, here I would imagine y'all have high access to potatoes. Potatoes are very good carbohydrates. Arguably, I would say the best complex carbohydrate you could possibly eat.
Could you explain one serving of fruit or one serving of blueberries as compared to one serving of sugar?
Yes. So when I'm talking about to go back to this, when I was talking about like foods, and this kind of answers like yours a bit too. When I'm talking about the foods you can eat as much as you want, these are all chosen because they're even the limit, because they're high volume. So if we're talking about weight, 12 grams of honey is about 10 grams of carbohydrates. So 12 gram weight of honey is about 10 grams of carbohydrates. 75 grams of blueberries is about 10 grams of carbohydrates. 75 grams of blueberries looks like this. 10 or 12 grams of honey isn't even a teaspoon. So you're getting the same amount of carbs and calories, but one isn't going to fill you up whatsoever, and one's going to fill you up. That's why those things are important to look at, and why, again, that kind of goes back and answers your question a bit too. You want to choose these items because they are going to fill you up. You're not going to overeat items like this. It's very easy to overeat things like that. And honey's not bad for you. In fact, if you're trying to gain weight, I encourage people to add honey to everything. Like add it to rice, add your honey to whatever you're going to be eating, your vegetables. Again, because it's most people who are having a hard time gaining weight, they have a hard time gaining weight. They also have a hard time eating enough. Like they don't have the appetite. Honey is a really good way to do that because it's low volume, high calorie. We throw that in there. So that's a good question, and think of it that way. So any of these things, if it's a low amount, like there's a low volume, but it's a high calorie item, think about it. That's not going to fill you up. So it's very easy to overeat calories. So we want to look for things that have a huge bang for the buck on that. Watermelon, I mean, it's like so hard to overeat watermelon. It's a very hard thing to overeat.
What would you suggest to eat to fuel your body before a workout or practice?
So it depends on how long you have to eat or until your practice. But some of my favorite ones, and again, we're talking about like athletes and people that are working out, so we'll get into this maybe part a little bit. One of my absolute favorite like pre-workout and pre-practice is going to be like Greek yogurt and oats and fruit. It's like Greek yogurt, oats, and fruit, because then you're getting protein. The oats are going to be something that's a little bit slower digesting and slower absorbing, and the fruit's going to be a little bit faster. So I have a little bit more sustained energy from the oats and a little bit of fast energy from the fruit. That's like an easy go-to. I really like that that's kind of also something that like most of my that's good depending on your stomach. That's good about an hour. Like my high school athletes that I work one-on-one with, that's usually their like school's over. As soon as school's over, like they're going to their locker, pulling their core out, and like they're eating yogurt and oats. Like or yogurt and fruit. That's a very common thing to eat right before they go to practice.
Let's say they forgot to do that, which they would never would, but let's say they didn't bring stuff. What's something good they could do 30 to 15 minutes before? If they had to just run somewhere, they could maybe keep it in their car.
There's I'm trying to think. Something you can keep in your, like, just more like you don't have refrigerator, all that. Especially like if you have like a high intense sport, like half a peanut butter sandwich is completely okay. Like peanut butter banana, because bananas you don't have to keep cold. Little things like that are like very, very easy for athletes to get to sustain energy very well. There's like that's where we get in a little bit into the avoid and maybe, but again, with athletes, we're not worried about you losing weight, so that's not a thing. We're just worried about on you fueling yourself. Things like that, like a half of a peanut butter sandwich is a really good one. Milk is a really good one. Chocolate milk is still, study after study shows chocolate milk is like the best thing you can do post-workout. Like I work with swimmers, I work with wrestlers. I don't work currently with any high school football players, but I have. Like after practice, that's one of the, like 8 ounces of chocolate milk is one of the best things they could possibly do. Probably not an idea to just drink chocolate milk all day, because again, that doesn't fill you up. But that's almost going to be kind of like a supplement to help you recover from the workout session and to get glycogen to your muscles, so to get carbs to your muscles and to get quick protein in. Chocolate milk is going to be a really good way for you to do that.
That's whole milk.
Yeah, and honestly, like yeah. So yeah, the good stuff. In post-workout, like we're just trying to get some carbs and protein in mostly. So in that one, like if you have like a lower fat one, it's fine. That would be the only, I would say, like think of that more as like a nutritional supplement, even though it is milk. Think of it more of like a supplement than a food, just because you're trying to get it in to supplement that workout. So that would be like an instance you could do a lower fat one. Just, I think usually chocolate milk, when you find that it normally is a lower fat one, just from the food industry trying to pull the calories back a little bit.
Can you tell us an ideal day to eat so my son's a wrestler. So on a competition day, I think that like we do pretty good on the normal training days, but competition days are always a little more stressful and like a little bit more intense. So what would be like your ideal fuel, like a large all-day bracket?
So I'll have we didn't have room to write this on, so I have these handouts, and actually this would be, like if I can get like emails or whatever, I'll just send this to everyone that's here. So it's kind of like handouts that I made, like based off of this type of stuff. And I made that one again. We just didn't have, have.
To Darren, and he can post it.
Okay, that'll be easy enough. So like things and again, because we didn't have like to answer both of those questions, going to kind of be the same exact thing. So like I put like some ideal things like bagel, peanut butter, like bagel with cream cheese, string cheese is a good one, cottage cheese and fruit, Greek yogurt with fruit and or honey, peanut butter sandwich, peanut butter and honey sandwich, turkey sandwich, hummus and pretzels, protein bar. But if you do a protein bar, you want it to be around like at least 10 grams of protein and really low sugar. RX bars are like one of the best ones out there. They normally have like 3 or 4 ingredients. It's essentially egg whites, dates, and something else. Bread and tuna is a good one. Dried fruit and string cheese, because again, we want carbs and protein with all of that. Like I put like nuts and fruit. Again, you're talking about athletes, so it's different. So essentially, when you're looking for that, it's going to be the same thing. So like for wrestlers, especially if you're doing like tournaments, because you know how tournaments are, like you compete and then you just go in the crowd and you normally like put a beanie over your head and sleep till the next match. Same types thing, like we want to keep those things really close. You're going to want like things that digest really fast and are low volume, especially if it's a tournament they have to re-weigh in later, which I hate that that's still a thing, but it just is. Because that food will sit on your stomach, they're not going to digest that in 24 hours. So that's where like something like yogurt with honey is going to be a really good way to get calories in, but not put a lot of weight in the stomach. That's
So I guess my question
Yeah.
is more like, what intervals do you want him to eat?
okay.
Instead of like after he eats in the morning, at what intervals do you want him to eat throughout if he's going to be there for like 4 to 6 hours?
Yeah, if he's going to be there for, I mean, the thing is gosh, wrestling tournaments, it depends so much on how often they're wrestling. But he needs to eat when he wakes up. He needs to eat breakfast. We would always, like, as soon as you weigh in, you need to eat. If they have which some of them are doing 24-hour weigh-ins now, they get to weigh in literally the day before. But as soon as they can weigh, like, or when they get to the venue after they weigh, eat, and then after the first match, they need to eat again. Then if they wrestle again after that match, they need to eat again. Yes, I would do a little bit after each one. Again, though, if you do too much after, their body's not going to digest it in general. So like any one of those items, so like say if we're doing like a bagel and peanut butter, like half would be fine, and then do the other half after the next one. You just want something like small and quick that's going to get in and try to, because again, it's rough. But it's the biggest thing with wrestling. You got to think even you're only wrestling for minutes. It's very intense, but the problem is you're there all day and you don't get a chance to eat like normal whole meals. So don't just think of it as you have to recover from that wrestling match. You also just need the amount of calories, like you need the food to help with your just keeping you alive, your basal metabolic rate. That's how old is he?
He's
Oh, cool, yeah.
That's our biggest struggle.
That's the most fun age for wrestling.
He doesn't like to eat during the tournament.
Yeah, it's tough.
But I feel like towards the end, for the championship rounds, you're like dead.
Yeah.
All day, you gotta
Yeah,
recover yourself.
yeah.
And so it's a battle.
Do you have to, is there cut weight? Like, do you have to really cut much or?
We're lucky enough to have a coach that just tells you not to cut weight. Like at his age,
Wow.
you just tell him if you can't win, get stronger, practice more, don't cut weight. So
That's
we're
awesome.
that way.
Wow, you got a great coach. So yeah, like chocolate milk would be a good one after that. Like take the little cartons, or like Fairlife has the bottles of chocolate milk now, and they do the the type of pasteurization they do. It doesn't have to be kept cold. That would be actually a really good one for that. If weight's not a concern on that, and you're just trying to get that back in, I would actually say chocolate milk's gonna be like one of the best things after each match. I'd be like, gosh, you got a good coach. That's so rare. I think yeah.
At the Olympic level, he's got athletes that
That's even rarer at that level. That's awesome.
doesn't push.
What's his name? Just like do you know his name?
Ivan Delchat.
What is it?
Ivan Delchat.
Oh, let's just say that's awesome that he's doing that. Oh yeah, that's awesome. That's good. There's few coaches like that in America. Yeah.
Okay, good question for you. So, you kind of mentioned this, that's why I wanted to go back to it in your own story about as you were telling us kind of your journey with eating. So a lot of our athletes will come in and sometimes they have trouble sleeping, and I'm curious if potentially under eating could be contributing to their inability to sleep well.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's what they're eating, but.
Two reasons usually like younger people have a hard time sleeping. One is because it's really hard to sleep when you're looking at a phone. That's going to be usually the number one. Number two is it's really hard to sleep when you're watching television. But number three is a lot of times it's under eating. Like if you don't eat enough throughout the day, it can influence sleep negatively. So if you're not sleeping enough, or not eating enough, it can make sleep difficult because your body's just overtaxed and stressed from the day of working out. Especially if you have like later practices or later games, that's a very common thing. But like when we're talking about sleep, that is going to be your, like, I know like when you're a kid, like sleep is something you don't want to do because you can't have fun while you're doing it, but it's so important. It's something you don't get as much opportunity to as an adult that you wish you would have when you were younger. Sleep is literally when our body manages our hormones. So the less sleep you get, you're literally missing out on things like human growth hormone. We hear human growth hormone as like a bad thing if it's taken externally, but your body produces HGH, and it literally is human growth hormone. It's what helps you grow. If you're sleeping correctly, you get more time to actually produce that. So like it's not even like a tricky thing. The more sleep you get, it really will help you grow. It's when your body manages testosterone and all kinds of things. Like you need to sleep adequately to recover from workouts and just to grow. Study after study has shown like the links of sleep. They're even now seeing that people who eat great, like they can eat good, they can do everything, but if they're not getting enough sleep, they can still get type 2 diabetes just from a lack of sleep. Dr. Kirk Parsley, who's a former Navy SEAL, started noticing a lot of his buddies were like really good shape, very, very fit, but he started noticing that they were dropping off from the same diseases and issues that obese people were, and he wasn't sure what it was. So he started studying sleep and became like one of the world's premier guys on sleep, and found that the whole reason these guys were dying from heart-related issues and diabetes was solely because they weren't sleeping enough. Through Navy SEAL training, they learned that they didn't need sleep, they just needed to function without it, and then they carried that on into later in life, and that's where that happened. They've even shown that if you are lucky enough, so if you sleep 8 hours a day, even like 1 to 2 days of sleeping 6 hours a day will make you insulin resistant for the next 24 hours. Repeated insulin resistance is diabetes. That's how we become diabetic. So like not getting enough sleep. So I'm telling you, you need carbohydrates. I'm telling you, everyone needs carbohydrates. But I'm also telling you, if you don't sleep enough, your body can't use carbohydrates the way that it needs. So I'm telling you, you need this thing, but if you're not getting enough sleep, your body can't use this thing that you need. I used to say you need to sleep 8 hours, and I just cut it off at that. Get 8 hours of sleep. That was before I had kids, and that was before I was like a businessman and was busy. Now I'm smarter, and I understand like you just got to sleep more. Like 8 might be completely unobtainable for you, but if you sleep 4, 5 might be obtainable, and you will get better. Like you will see improved health if you just sleep more. So whatever you're doing now, do more than you do. There's different kinds of sleep. Ambient sleep isn't sleep, that's unconsciousness. They've study after study has shown that ambient will knock you out. It'll put you to sleep, but you're not getting the benefits of sleep. You're not hitting the REM cycles like you should. So I encourage people to not use that. We want to pitch black out your room completely. We want to actually we want to be able to not see our hands in front of our face. If you can see your hand, there's too much light in your room. Get your room cool, get off electronics well before time to go to bed. You know, it's very tough. If you have an iPhone, you can cheat that a little bit. iPhones have that thing now where you can program it in to where at like a certain time at night, mine does at 8 o'clock, it turns on a yellow screen instead. And what's that doing is that's allowing you to stay on your phone a little bit later, and it's not going to affect your sleep. And a lot of times when I tell that to people, they say, like, I sleep fine. It doesn't matter. You can go to sleep and sleep 8 hours completely unbroken, but that doesn't mean that your body was doing everything it needed during that sleep. Those are going to be the ways to get that. And the last like major point I'll touch on is hydration. It's very quick. Your body, every single process that your body does, it needs water to do that process. That's why we die much quicker without water than we do food. You can last a really long time actually without food as long as you have water. You don't last long at all without water. The bare minimum is going to be half of your body weight in ounces. So whatever you weigh, divide that by 2, that's going to be your bare minimum. Drink that many ounces of water a day. For every 30 minutes you work out, you need about 15 ounces more. If it's hot where you live, you probably need a little bit more. So again, those are bare minimums. Half of your body weight in ounces a day, plus 15 ounces for every 30 minutes you work out. So again, you need water for every single process your body does. So everything I've just talked about, runs on water, it needs water. So if you're not getting enough water, you're not getting this, like you're not getting a full benefit of all this. So if you're partially dehydrated, your body's not gonna do anything that needs you to do for weight loss, performance, or weight gaining, no matter what. Even a 2% dehydration, so 2% of your body weight dehydrated, is enough to show like cognitive dysfunction and performance dips over 24 hours. And that's only 2%. So that's, most of us lose 2% just in one workout if you don't drink that back up. Supplements I kind of touched on, like they can be fine. I'm a big fan of protein. If you can't eat enough protein, I'd rather you just eat it. If you can't, that's a good way to get that in. Creatine, I'm a huge fan of. Vitamins, multivitamins are usually a little bit overrated just because they're not normally great quality sources. If you're getting plenty of fruits and vegetables, you probably don't need multivitamins. If you're not, they can help. Any other supplement is just going to be kind of a luxury. It can be okay, but you don't necessarily need it. Pre-workouts, children and youth should never ever touch pre-workouts. I mean, I don't know what it is about I don't even know if you knew this because you're not about our town, but we've had 3 deaths. We had 3 deaths over the course of like 6 years in high schools from Monster Energies, and one was Monster Energy, one was Explode, and one was C2, and or I think it's called C2 or C something, C4. And that was the kid took it and went to work out. All 3 times the kid took it, went to work out, blew something in their brain, and they died from it. And it was directly linked 100% just to taking the pre-workout. So you're kind of rolling the dice. I mean, it's not a dice I would want to roll. I tell people, especially at that age, if you need like it's kind of harsh. And like, listen, if you need an energy booster to go work out, maybe sports isn't for you. Like especially at a young age, like you shouldn't need something to help you have the energy to work out. If you're addressing the food, you should have all the energy you need. I'll make that argument even with adults. If you've addressed everything else, you don't need the energy to work out. Like you probably just lack the motivation. And I'll even go into that. Like motivation doesn't take you very far. It just needs to be a habit. With me, there's a lot of times, especially when I'm traveling, I'm not motivated to work out. It's just become such a daily habit. I'm going to do it for the same reasons I eat. I eat because it's a habit. I brush my teeth because it's a habit. I just work out because it's a habit, whether I'm motivated to or not. But I'm not a fan of pre-workouts if you didn't catch that. Coffee is going to be honestly your best pre-workout you can eat because it's going to give you a moderate dose of what you need. So any questions?
Conor McGregor or Nate Diaz?
Like who I like, who would win again? Probably Diaz. Conor's. Actually, I know Conor well. I work with a lot of his teammates. I've hung out with him several times. He's too rich to care anymore. I say it's really hard to wake up. Well, I can't remember which boxer said it, but it's like really hard to wake up at 5 a.m. when you sleep in silk sheets.
I think for these guys, hydration is a big thing, guys. So you talked about, just to reiterate, you have a 2-hour practice, right? That's 60 ounces of water you should be drinking to get back from that.
That on top of, yep, on top.
So like 100 ounces of water for most of you guys that practice isn't even touching. You should probably be above that.
A really good thing to do is like if you know you're going to be in here if you know your workout in here is going to be 45 minutes, like then okay, I know what you need on that. Like have that in a water bottle already ready to drink and be drinking that during and after. Like that's a really good way to just do that.
I have another question. So you talked about how you ended up messing up your metabolism. How did you kind of go about fixing that?
Yeah, so I quit. I changed my workout, so I quit doing so much darn like cardio and stuff. I was one of these like 2-3 times a day working out. So I switched to primarily just lifting weights, just to focus on putting on muscle mass. Because again, muscle mass increases your metabolism. So I focused on that above everything, putting on as much muscle mass as I could. And then I started eating more calories, but even then I upped my calories to a maintenance level and just kind of kept it there for a couple of years, and that helped. But even recently I've started like aggressively doing it to where I started adding in more calories. So I weighed, because I'm trying to actually like help my metabolism even further, and if I gain weight, I'm completely fine with that now. Like I want to actually put on some more muscle. So I was eating about 2,400 calories a day. and weighing, like at that time I was weighing around like 204 pounds. So now this has just been a process over about 8 to 12 weeks. And now I'm at about 3,800 calories a day, weighing the same. So it's like so theoretically I could drop down to like 3,300 calories a day and I would start to lose a pound of fat a week if I wanted to. So like years ago, there's no way that would have worked. It was just because I started sleeping better, like as good as I could, sleeping better, doing a lot less cardio, focusing on adding muscle mass to increase my metabolism, and then adding calories slowly into my diet. With some of my clients, I do that, and it is tricky because you're going to see an increase in your weight for a little bit. So I tell them just put the scale away. So they increase their weight a little bit because they are eating more, but eventually if you do it slowly, the metabolism has to catch back up. And once the metabolism catches up, we have a new basal metabolic rate. We have a new maintenance level set point. So that's the problem. When we diet, if you diet for a long time, what happens? Like you diet, your metabolism drops. So if 2,000 calories, I'm gonna use that just because I'm bad at math. If I use 2,000 calories as maintenance, 2,000 calories is what my body needs. Okay, so now I'm gonna eat 1,500 calories to lose weight. And that works for a while, but then what happens is your basal metabolic rate drops as well. So now to lose weight, I'm gonna have to eat 1,200 calories. And then your metabolism goes down and then gets to a point there's no possible way you can eat as little as you need to lose weight. And that's where people stop getting results on a plan when they've dieted for a long time, they lose weight and then it just stops. It's because their metabolism has dropped the entire time with them. Their metabolism was here, their food intake was here, they dropped their food here, and the metabolism keeps doing this, and at some point you can't keep going under, and then you go up. But when you go up, because you gave up on the diet, your metabolism is an all-time low. So it's something called the Biggest Loser study. They did it on the contestants of The Biggest Loser. Out of The Biggest Loser, there's only been one person ever to compete on the show that didn't gain all the weight back and then some. They all weigh more now than when they started the show. And that's because they just killed their metabolism during the show. So they were set to fail after the show. They were in a better spot, or they're in a worse spot post-show than they were before. They should have just never done the show if they wanted, sadly.
So can you eat more and not strength train and still?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just strength training is going to be a little bit, it's going to be a better bang for your buck because you're adding muscle mass.
Eating more, won't you gain?
Yeah, you'll gain either way. You're going to gain a little bit, but it's okay because your metabolism has to catch up. You're going to gain a little bit, and that's okay, and that's the mental hard part for a lot of people with that. So you're going to gain some. It's just going to happen, but eventually if you just do it slow and steady, and I'm talking like 100 to 150 calories a week, like not adding very aggressive whatsoever. Eventually what you notice is as you're gaining that, you'll gain a little bit, but then eventually you just kind of stay. You stagnate, and then you have a new maintenance level, and you just stay there for a bit.
That's keeping your activity level up, though, correct?
Yeah, but I mean, I could do it even with someone who didn't have a high activity level. It's kind of the catch-22 there. If you are metabolically damaged, the only way to fix it is to add more calories. You have to. Like, you have to do it. There's just the best way to go about it is going to be add more muscle mass while you add the calories, because then you're increasing your natural calorie output while you're increasing the calories. So it's going to work better that way. Lean muscle mass is just it's just the gold standard of, there's a million supplements that have come out in years saying they increase your metabolism. Not a single coffee, green coffee, it doesn't increase your metabolism, it increases your heart rate. But adding extra muscle mass is a 100% proven way it increases your metabolism.
I have another question. Along metabolism, does your metabolism change a lot as you age? So, like, if someone who's like going through menopause would be different. My mom, she needs to gain weight, and she's just like, I can't eat anymore.
Yeah, it starts dropping. Like actually sooner than they used to think. Like it starts dropping in your late 20s. Even your metabolism starts to drop. Again, you can do things like I said. My metabolism's higher now than it was in my 20s, but that's because I've had to aggressively work on it. But most of us, our metabolism starts dropping later in our 20s, and ironically, our metabolism starts dropping at the same time we also become busier. We become more like stagnant and lazy, and our lifestyle changes. That's why we gain weight and stuff. Is because all of that combined. With that, as like with her, it was something I've recently worked with someone on. Like the best thing is going to be trying to find low volume ways to get calories in. So that is going to be things like Ensures and milks, and if she can do it, and then honey, things like that don't fill her up, but they still give her calories. because her metabolism, it's weird. Like her metabolism still, if she can't gain weight, her metabolism's still probably pretty darn high. But as we age too, our like ability to eat food, it goes down. So we actually, like as we age, people even notice too, like I'm not really that hungry anymore, or they don't get hungry. So there's not being hungry is a sign of one of two things, usually metabolic damage. You should be hungry, or you're just older. Like as we get older, we're not as hungry. So you have to look for low volume ways to do that. If someone's older and they're not hungry, but they need to actually lose weight, it's the exact opposite. You got to look for like low calorie, high volume ways to fill them up, but it's tough. Any more questions? I didn't address this, but like by itself, but like with kids, especially, we talked about how it's easy to get into fad diets because we just care more about what we look like. Like with that, it's very easy to develop eating disorders and things like that. And I told you I'd suffered from one. Like, so if you are suffering one, like feel free to talk to me about it. But the best ways to address that, and what I found and what I've helped people with, is stop worrying about weight loss. Even if someone has told you, number one, if an adult has told you you need to lose weight, like even if they love you, they probably didn't realize they shouldn't have told you that. But if a doctor's telling you that, find a new doctor, or tell your parent to tell your doctor to shut up. A doctor shouldn't be telling you that. If you feel like you do, like quit focusing on weight loss. Just focus on what food can do to help you feel better and perform. If you start focusing on that and just focus on what food does for you from a performance method and stop thinking of it as weight loss, that's one good way. Because eating disorders happen because we care too much about what we weigh and what we look like. As soon as you look at food as a fuel source to fuel what you need, instead of a way to manage your weight, it begins to help. And again, don't restrict yourself, just improve the habits. Anything else, parents? Or I'll stay after for a bit too, so if you have questions. Is there anything you think that should...
Sounds good. You guys have any questions? No? Thank you.
Good.